Take it away.
Okay, yes. So now we're talking about Azure Monitor. So to be able to describe monitoring tools in Azure, you need to know, you'll get questions on this within the exam. So you'll get asked, what are the monitoring tools in Azure? So we need to know what these are. So if you move on to the next one. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at me, it's looking at the wrong slide. Excuse me while I... Right, okay, so here we have Azure Monitor. I'm going to look at all these different screens here. So on the left here, you can see that we've got the kind of things that we can put into Azure Monitor. So if you're deploying virtual machines or web apps or AKS or anything like that, you can basically monitor what's going on. So you need to know what's going on in case something goes down. Your web app goes down. You want to look at the logs. Where do you head? Basically, Azure Monitor is the thing to do it. Now, I always struggle with what's the difference between Azure Monitor and another tool called Log Analytics. And I think I've found a quote that's made me kind of realize this. So somebody from Microsoft said it's a bit like the relationship of Office to Word and Excel. So Azure Monitor is the brand and Log Analytics is one of the solutions. So we'll talk about Log Analytics in a minute, but in my head, in both of these tools, you ingest data and logs and files from Azure, and you can query them and get details back. So that's the best way to think of it. Azure Monitor is the brand, and all the things on the right where you've got experiences, visualize, analyze, respond, and integrate. All of these things on the right are kind of like just the solutions that you can use inside Azure Monitor. So Azure Monitor is like the world brand. You can use it to monitor Azure resources, on-premise resources, even multi-cloud resources like virtual machines hosted in AWS or GCP. Its job is to provide a centralized view of all of this performance and health of Azure resources and apps in order to basically troubleshoot them. So if you've got apps and you've got a problem, Azure Monitor, dig into some of these tools. So maybe you're looking at application insights, which we'll come on to. Log Analytics we'll come on to. And maybe you're even going to look at integrating some of these tools with Logic Apps, for example. So it's used to view data from a number of sources and stores metrics and logs, and it also now has tracing as well, which is kind of fairly new. So it allows us to gain insight, visualize, analyze, and respond to alerts, which we'll come on to. So if you move one slide on, that would be great. Cool. I need to move mine as well. Cool. So part of this is the same slide, but I've got other things that I wanted to mention. So the key aspects of Azure Monitor are you've got numerical time series values and logs for storing log data. You can get metrics, or the metrics for everything you do in Azure are automatically stored for every Azure resource inside Azure Monitor. But you can get insights, which are out-of-the-box monitoring and troubleshooting experiences for your Azure resources. You can use Azure Monitor to visualize data with workbooks and dashboards, which make it really interesting so you can quickly see trends and things that are wrong with your data. So if you move on again, that'd be good. Cool. Log Analytics. I need to move mine on as well. I keep forgetting that. So it's a Log Analytics. This is the service that you use to basically go in and you collect and analyze the logs. So imagine if you have a web app and the performance is poor, you can you can send the logs from web apps, from virtual machines, all these different services into Azure Monitor, and then you use Log Analytics to query these. So it's a central location for storing and querying logs. So on the screen here, you kind of go in, you click on logs within Log Analytics Workspace. So that's the kind of framework that you have set up. You would then choose something in the kind of middle query, in the middle bit, maybe something like network or security. And then you have kind of templated queries that are already written for you. So if you wanted to look at like all of the 404 errors in web apps, one of these queries will be, for example, here you can look at response time trend. So if I went over to, let me just zoom in. If I, you're sharing your screen. If I went to response time trend and then ran that, it would give me the response time trend for whatever logs that I've chosen. So Log Analytics is all about analyzing the logs and basically looking at the data and getting results out of the data. So it focuses on collecting and analyzing the logs. And it's kind of like, I always think of this as like hardcore looking at the data and the logs. You don't really do much more than query logs and look at the data. And that's kind of what Log Analytics is for. So one of the best practices to do when deploying an Azure subscription and projects is you always tend to deploy a log analytics workspace, and then you can send log details from all your apps and your services into log analytics, and then you can analyze and query the data there. So that's what log analytics is for. I always used to get mixed up between Azure Monitor and log analytics, and what are they? Monitor's the kind of brand, and log analytics is just a part of the solution for Azure Monitor. Right, moving on. What have we got next? Azure Monitor alerts. So in other words, what you can do, let me just move mine on. What you can do as well is you can set up alerts. So imagine you have like a virtual machine that's running, and the CPU or the memory keeps going above 7. Let's say the CPU goes above 75%, and you think that's too high. You want to know about this. You can set up what's called Azure Monitor alerts. So the alerts are set up to basically look at the monitoring, look at the logs that these services are sending in. And if it went above 75%, you could get it to send you an email or an SMS or do whatever you want. You could even get it to scale up the virtual machine, all sorts of things you can do in here. So I'm going to look at some of the notes here that I've got. You can do it over a certain CPU, which would be perfect. You can do it. You can get it to send out emails. You can get it to do webhooks. You can get it to call an Azure function, logic apps. So that's kind of like the initial slide where we saw integrate. You can integrate Azure Monitor alerts with other tools so that when an alert fires, you can decide what kind of outcome you want to do. So overall, Azure Monitor Alerts provides a powerful way to proactively monitor the health of your Azure resources. And that's what's really good about it. On this slide here, you can see you've got 29 alerts. You've basically set up alert rules, and you can see which ones have been acknowledged, which ones have been closed, and the severity of them. So you've got 26 at severity 0, which might be like high, for example, and then you have to do something like raise a ticket in your ITSM or whatever. And that's kind of what Azure Monitor Alerts are all about. We can take a look at that in the portal when I come to it. I'll probably go through all these slides and then go back and show you these things one at a time. So if you go on the next slide, if you don't mind. Right, so in fact, let's do an Applications Insight demo. So Application Insights is a tool that you add to usually to your web apps that can help instrument what's going on. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen here, and let's see if I can do this. Let's do entire. Let's do window. No, let's do entire screen. Let's do this, and hopefully you can see the Azure portal. Yes. So I've deployed a web app that has a SQL Server backend, and if I want to know what goes wrong with this, or I want to be able to implement kind of instrumentation on this, so it's called Application Insights. So you can add this to your web application. So if I browse to this web application that's been deployed, let's just click on it. That'll kind of load in the background, and then I can basically hook up what's called Application Insights to this. So if I click on Application Insights for this particular web app, and then I go into View Application Insights Data.
Are you supposed to be sharing your screen?
Yes, am I not?
Not at the moment, no. You still got a slide deck.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
I can see the screen.
No, look, I'm sharing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah,
it was still showing.
Just lagging. My bad internet. So if I
no,
it's all good. If I go into this web app and kind of start using it, and if I put this in chat and you guys in chat start clicking on this, let me just put it in here. Yeah, don't criticize my beautiful to-do web app, please, and don't put anything naughty in while I'm screen sharing. You can basically see what's going on. So if I click around and click on things like, let me just hide that, edit, and then go back and then click on home and privacy and all the different links and all the different browser versions, I can go in and I can see some of this. So let's take a look at some of the things that Application Insights gives us, because this is like insights on steroids is what I like to call it. First of all, let's have a look at the application dashboard. Let's just open that up. So straight away you get this application dashboard out of the box. I haven't created anything, and it gives you all this insights into what's happening right now. So it'll show me like the usage, how many sessions and users are on, how many failed requests there's been, things like server response time, browser exceptions. I can go and see which browser you guys are using. I can see the responsiveness. So that's quite cool. Off the top of my head, you can go in here and you can turn auto refresh on, so it'll automatically update as people start using it. You can go in and you can basically upload this. You can basically use that as a dashboard. So that's an example of a pretty cool dashboard for application insights. So that's one thing. Other things involved in application insights are what's called the application map. Now imagine obviously this is a very simple web app. Imagine I have a web app that's called microservices and it's gone off the AKS clusters and it's doing SQL Server and Postgres and Cosmos and all that amazing Azure services that I absolutely love. You can go into this, what's called the application map, and kind of see what's going on. Now, obviously, I have a very simple web app here. So I've just got one web app talking to a SQL Server database. But in here, I can start to click on things. So if I start to see errors, I can go in here and I can click on details and I can see things like how long the duration was. I can view the logs. I can look into the compute to see what's going on. I can see that this is the name of the Azure App Service. I can also go into things like the calls being made. I can investigate the performance. So here, the SQL Server database is taking 5 milliseconds. So let's have a look at investigating the performance of that. And this is all built into Application Insights. So this is a web app that calls a SQL Server backend to bring back the list of to-do items. And I can actually browse all the way into the SQL. So here I can see the query here. And I could probably go in and see what it's doing and see like someone from Command-X basically query this. And I can drill into like samples. So here's like the different, the duration, the response code, the dependency name. I can go into this here, which will show me the exact call on SQL Server. So I can click on the SQL Server. I can even look at the query. I can do all sorts of things in Application Insights. You don't need to know huge amounts of the detail in here. Just know that there are absolutely an amazing amount of detail in here. You just need to know that if you need to instrument your application insights is how you go about it. So you basically deploy your app. Let me go back to the web app. Let's do this. Let's go to resource groups. Click on the resource group. Click on the app, and then you basically deploy an app insights, and then you can tie it in here. So this is the app insights for my application, and that's kind of how you tie it together. Other things, so we'll show you the application map. You can do smart detection. I don't have that turned on at the moment. I could probably just click on that and it'll come up. I've not got anything in this time range at the moment. Live metrics is another way to look at what's happening. So it kind of, if this was Black Friday, I could look at the live metrics of all of this going on right now. So here's like the last 60 seconds. This will take a wee while to kind of kick in. And obviously I'm the only person on that, and maybe you guys have clicked on it, so there's not a lot of telemetry at the moment. You can do transaction searches. So if you have custom logging and you want to look at the custom logging, you can search for like custom logging in here, and what that's doing is it's basically querying the web logs in the background. So that's pretty cool as well. And again, the last 24 hours, you can filter all this to do whatever you want. You can also view it in the logs. That'll take you to log analytics, and then you can query it inside there as well. Things like availability just tell you how available is your application. You can do tests. So you can test the availability of it. You can do all sorts of stuff in here. You can look at failures. It'll give you an insight into some of the failures. Some of the failures I had earlier on was when SQL Server just decided not to work, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, you can go in here and you can actually see the query. So you can go in here and see the end-to-end transaction details. And I'm not sure why my database, but it basically had an exception, which is kind of interesting because I just deployed it and it broke straight away. So you can actually see the stack trace all the way down. This stuff's amazing if you've got a customer phoning up going, my web app's down or my web app's throwing errors. What do I do? And it'll actually group all these errors and things like that. So you can see, you can group all these as well. So it's got traces, dependencies, and exceptions all built in, and you can view it in the timeline. This stuff's bananas, to be honest with you. It's really cool stuff. What else have we got? I keep clicking on the wrong link, but we've also got performance, so you can see the performance of the web app. If you want, you can go in and see like at what time did it start to kind of slow down. You can see the calls, how long these calls took. You can drill into dependencies and all that good stuff. There's even troubleshooting guides, which is in preview, and I haven't actually looked at this, so let's have a quick look at this. So if you've got exceptions, you can now, these are workbooks, and you can look at the exception. and it'll try and show you like what is the exceptions and what caused it. Again, troubleshooting stuff. Brilliant. Application Insights is amazing. You've also got what else have we got? We've got metrics. You can go in and look at the metrics for the particular resource that you've got App Insights. So because it's a web app, it kind of goes, okay, we're looking at web apps, and the metrics are all like browser detection, page load time. If this was App Insights for a virtual machine, these metrics would all be different. The performance counters would be well different. And you can go in and go things like, let's have a look at, I don't know, availability, and then the availability would probably be 100%. But you get the idea. You can chart all this. And excuse me. Look at over time and then plot and add more metrics and stuff like that. Obviously, my web app is very basic, so there's not a lot to see here. What else have you got? You've got users. You can have a look at the users who have been browsing the web app. You can look at the sessions. You can look at a thing called user flows, which will show you the user come in and which direction they went. So if you had a shopping cart website, for example, you could see the flow of the user coming in and see which pages they were on and for how long, and you can get all sorts of insights and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'll probably stop talking about application insights because I could do a full hour on it. It's really, really cool stuff. You can create workbooks and all sorts in here. But that's Azure Monitor's solution called Application Insights. If you get asked in the exam, what do you need? How do you instrument your VMs or your web apps? Application Insights is how you go about troubleshooting most of your kind of services. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Simon, can you go back to the slide if that's all right? Easier said than done. Azure Service Health. I didn't actually know this stuff this well, I have to admit. So there's three kind of things to Azure Service Health. There's Azure Status. So if you go to status.azure.com, which I'll go to after we stop talking about this, you can see the status of all of the Azure resources globally. So if you're using, let's say you're using storage and you start getting some weird storage issues, you can basically go to status.azure.com, look at the region that you're in, West Europe, for example, for us, and then you can see storage, and it's either got a green ticker or it'll have an orange, or it'll show you that there's problems with the service. So that's kind of how you do it globally. So that's the overall status of Azure. It does that by combining these three services. So you've got Azure Status, which is azure.status.microsoft.com. I always get that wrong. And that's just the global picture of Azure currently. Next up, you've got Service Health. So you can actually go into the portal and go to the top and type Service Health. I didn't really know this. I don't know why I didn't know this, but I wasn't really aware of this. So that provides a view of the services and the regions that you're using specifically. So if there's anything impacting you, you can go in there and see communications on service health issues for your particular services. So if you're using storage and there's a storage issue, you can go in there and it'll give you an update to what's happening. So it'll tell you if there is any issues in the services that you're using. It'll tell you about planned maintenance, and it'll also tell you about anything else that may affect the service that you're currently using. But there's also a thing called resource health. So for every single resource, I can't say that, in the portal, down the very bottom left on the menu, there's a resource health option in the portal. So that's a tailored view of your service. So that provides information about the specific virtual machine instance that you're using. And it's using Azure Monitor. You can configure alerts to notify you of availability changes to your cloud resources. So if something becomes unavailable, you can set up like Azure Monitor alerts to monitor this. So what it's saying here is basically if you combine all these, gives you the overall Azure Service Health for all of Azure. And it also gives you historical alerts. It'll let you know about what if something went down and a customer phoned you to say storage wasn't working or SQL Server stopped working unexpectedly. You can go to one of these three. First of all, I would check Azure Status to see is it currently down globally. You could go to Service Health and see is there any incidents that have happened in the last X days, months, years, and then you can go to the actual resource itself, and it'll tell you if there's anything wrong with it, if it's available or not. So that's Azure Service Health in a nutshell. I wonder if it's let me share my screen actually again, and we'll cover a couple of these. Let me just try this. Window. Let's do this again. So let's have a look at these in action. Just bring up the browser. So, for example, service health. Let's do them. Let's go to status.azure.com. That always flicks back to that. So this is basically the services all across the world. So if you go to like Europe, for example, here's all the resources down the left, the compute resources to start off with, all of the regions, and you can kind of see the green status. So right now everything looks good. Sometimes you'll come in here and potentially something's down, or container apps might be down, and you'll see this orange, and I'll have a bit at the top telling you, like, I'll give you some. There's an example, Azure Status History. You can click on that. But here's the chart here. Good information and warning. You don't ever want one of these because that would not be good. Again, you can go to the portal and go to, what was it called? Service Health. I go into Service Health. Second option in the portal. I've never really seen this. I never really clicked on this before reading up on this, to be honest with you. You can go in here and see what's affected across the world. So one of these would be red if it's an affected location. You can go in and see planned maintenance, so you can see what's coming up. I don't really have anything in this subscription, so the chances of this showing in. But if you've got a large subscription, you might see, like, I don't know, VMs might have a planned maintenance window for like a week's time, and it's just to tell you. If there's anything wrong at the moment, they'll give you a health advisory, so you can click on this and it'll tell you if there's anything upcoming. There isn't at the moment. You can also create service health alerts and also have security advisories. So if there's anything that's not really secure at this moment in time, that will tell you about it. And you can look at health history. So I don't think there'll be anything in here either. So pretty crap demo because I don't have any resources in here. Same with these and health alerts. And the last one is if you go into a particular resource. So let's go into here. And then let's go to a web app, for example, or a SQL Server database. The last one was resource health, which is always down the bottom on the left here. So under help, in fact, I think every resource has this resource health. So you can go in here and it just checks the availability, and you can also diagnose and solve problems. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is really cool. You can go in and if there is a problem, you can go in and run these kind of like, it's kind of like automation in the background where it will try and explore what the problem might be. Obviously, there isn't a problem at the moment, so this won't come up with anything really. It'll just say everything's fine. But if my VM wouldn't start and I was in here as a virtual machine, I would get things to try and check, like maybe check the boot sequence picture to just check the boot diagnostics log, just to check what was going on. So these kind of common problem things can help. So if you are really struggling, always have a look at diagnose and solve problems. So these are the kind of things, like, because it knows it's a SQL server, it's like, okay, what's potentially the problem? Is that a security appliance? Is that a backup and restore? And if it was, you click on that and it'd give you advice to go and look at stuff like that. Okay. Let's switch back to slide if that's okay. So that's the kind of service status stuff. Azure Health. Can you move on a slide if you don't mind, Simon? So then we have Azure Advisor. Azure Advisor is absolutely awesome. So it's basically some AI that runs in the background inside the portal and gives you personalized recommendations via the dashboard. It also covers cost, security, reliability, operational excellence, performance. And rather than talking about it, let's do another demo of it because I really like it. I use it very regularly. I should just have kept it open, really. Let's go back to here. I need that. Azure Advisor. So to get to Azure Advisor, just type Advisor on the top. Again, I don't have a lot of resources in here, but to get you started, if you click on the overview. So basically what happens is there's AI running in the background constantly monitoring, like, am I following all the cost recommendations for all of the resources in my subscription? I am, because I don't really have anything. Again, if I wasn't using, let's just say I had a lot of resources in Azure and I wasn't following some of these recommendations, this would tell me that I could save money, and it would tell you how much I could save by doing X. So an example of this would be reservations that Lisa was showing you in the pricing calculator. If you have an Azure virtual machine and you know you're going to need it for 1 or 3 years, you can actually put in a reservation in that will save you money. And if you're not using that recommendation, that will come up here and say, by the way, you can save X for 1 year or Y for 3 years. We recommend you do it, and I'll give you you click into it and it will show you. And it's the same for security, operational excellence, and performance. So if you're not meeting these recommendations, it will tell you. So here's one here, for example, resource reliability. Let's have a look at what it's saying. So it's saying here, I should be using a NAT gateway for outbound connectivity. So if you don't know what that is, you can click on it and go and read on it. But the kind of overall thing is you get an advisor score, which is 81%, pretty much because it's a bog standard brand new subscription with hardly anything on it. I don't really have any cost in security because there's not enough data. It's not been running for long enough. But on a large subscription, you see customers, I've seen customers with scores of like 60%, and it's my job to try and advise them. So the first place I go is Azure Advisor because it's covering cost, it's covering security, reliability, performance, and operational excellence. So that's a great start for all sorts of things. Yeah, Azure Advisor is really, really amazing. You can download it as a CSV, and the score thing is pretty new, but I really like it because it's giving you something to try and get better at. And you can see the score going up over a month and weekly and things like that. So not the best subscription to show you that on, but you can do it on one subscription. You can do it on all subscriptions. So you can get a score across all of your subscriptions or individually. So your production subscription score, you're wanting in the high 90s, basically. And if you've not, then you've got some work to do. And that's kind of Azure Advisor in a nutshell. So it's a recommendation service, which I think is really, really cool. I see lots of typing. I haven't looked at the chat, but I think we're pretty much on to questions. I think that's the last slide, if I'm not mistaken.